Hello, Paula. Thank you again for joining the second part of the GCC Voices conversation. So I enjoyed the first part, and I think the reaction from our audiences was also brilliant. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people reacted to it. So I'm really excited to have the second part of the conversation. Last time we spoke about the broader GBS world. We talked about trust. We talked about co-collaboration, co-creation, and co-design and collaboration and partnerships. So I think that was great themes. This time, what I want to cover is really about change, local culture, and learning. And I think those are important areas for GBSs as they start growing their capability within and expanding their reputation. So again, straight away, let me start off by asking you the first question. So, what's a change initiative that you were part of that didn't really work? And what did you learn from that gap between the global strategy and the local execution?
All right, Anisu. Well, thank you again. And I'm also very pleased to have you back and to keep growing with this conversation. All right, that's a really great question because, of course, when you're setting up these kind of capabilities, many times things don't go as expected, right? And we also need to be prepared for that. So probably one experience that comes to my mind was a process when we had everything right. We had like all the technical perspective was right. We had the talent. We had the transition plans. We had the governance. So we were basically ready for everything. Uh, but probably we underestimated the importance of the leadership sponsorship
Mhm.
and the global functional leader for this process. He wasn't really agreeing to transitioning this process, and he was really not fully supportive of
Mhm.
of this plan, right? And of course, well, this was bringing plenty of challenges to the process.
Mhm.
Um, in this occasion, this brought a lot of frustration to the local teams. We had like every minor issue, it was interpreted like as an evidence that he was right and we were wrong, and that it shouldn't have been transitioned in the first place, and that we were not fully prepared. And this really created like mistrust. This created uncertainty. This was really not empowering the team to grow and to build the capabilities needed to perform this function. Um, so what I get from this is definitely if the leaders are not aligned with the change and if they don't truly believe in the change, it's going to be very difficult for the organization to build the right confidence and to
Mhm.
reach its full potential.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. So what you really talked about is buy-in from the leaders and the sponsors, and they need to be on board and they need to really understand the journey and the benefits of doing what you're doing. So I think that's a great example and a great change initiative that you spoke about. I also want to now cover a bit about the global headquarters versus the local nuances. So how do you personally decide
Mhm.
when to push back on headquarters versus when to just make the global model, work locally for you? So what is the kind of decision point and how do you kind of decide on that?
Okay. Well, I don't really think that we should be deciding whether we're pushing back against headquarters or just simply making the global model work locally. I see my role more as helping both sides make the best decision for the business itself. So
Mhm.
normally global teams are defining the strategic direction, the priorities, or uh, setting up the goals, the standardization needed. So what we need to do as local leaders is ensure that the strategy can be executed effectively within the reality of the local market. If
Mm.
there are going to be times where we find local regulations or compliance requirements, operational risks, uh, constraints that globally they will not probably assess,
Mhm.
right? And that global solutions may not be the right fit based on this. So what we need to do is actually speak up in those cases and explain with data and with clear business arguments what the alternative solution should be to make it work on the right way.
Mm.
Um, so and now we can also see the other side, and it's when the local organization is placing resistance, right? They're not comfortable with the change, and that's also very common. And that's a complete different question. If we identify that this is the case and this is not a constraint, well, the role would be basically to help them understand and embrace the global direction as it should be, so that we can have one single way working and make it work. There is no exact equation. I mean, there is no exact balance between the headquarters and local organization. We just need to support with transparency, with trust. We need to have a shared vision to make sure that the decisions that we make are based on business value and not like in taking a part in the organization.
Got it. No, I think that's a great response, and I like the fact that there has to be a common goal and a shared path forward. And I think that, and when we meet in the middle ground, that's really when things begin to work out well. Moving on to the next question, I think I've known Colombia to be fantastic with football and globally well known. But I also know that Colombia is being talked about as one of the fastest growing GCC hubs in Latin America. So, according to you, what's driving that specifically and beyond cost, of course, and than other regions that we could learn from and other regions could learn from?
Wow. Well, I really love this one. This is one of the topics I'm most passionate about because I've really seen Colombia evolve over time during this past decade. And years ago, the global organizations were looking into Latin America basically because they were searching for cost efficiencies and it made sense, right? But today I see that there is a complete different question being asked. Like, but of course, cost will always matter, right? But I don't feel today it's the primary differentiator for our markets. Now, the first question that comes from global leaders is, what are the capabilities that we have to support a business function or a business process? So we're talking about more about capabilities or talent and not more about costs. So Colombia has been evolving over time. It's been transforming into a very competitive market. We have a very top education workforce. We have strong multilingual capabilities. We have great universities. We also have a top culture in resilience and high adaptability to change. And when you talk to young professionals, these are people that have very strong critical thinking, customer orientation, and an evolved continuous improvement mindset. That's something that I really highlight from the young professionals that we are looking into. Of course, there are other matters. I mean, like geographic advantages. We have time zone alignment with the whole Americas. We have a mature GBS ecosystem, and that's also helping to scale these kind of models in Colombia. But to me, the biggest shift is that we are no longer seen as a cost-effective argument, but the increasing business value that we are being able to deliver to the organizations.
Fantastic. No, I think what I took away, of course, is that talent is great and the fact that y'all are adaptable and there is great infrastructure in place to make sure that the ecosystem thrives. So I think that those are great points to highlight how Colombia is now becoming the fastest growing GBS hub. You had also spoken a bit about how you lead teams and a couple of points. So you say that you built psychological safety and continuous learning into your leadership approach. So how do you measure whether that's really working and whether it's landing or not?
Okay, well, as part of the culture, you do need to nourish and have these well-being programs. It needs to be part of the organization and the organizational culture. But I think psychological safety we cannot measure by how many programs we run. We need to measure this from a behavioral perspective. We need to see how the behaviors are being shaped and seen on the day to day. So I would look for signals as part of the communication with the people. I'd see if people are comfortable speaking up openly, challenging ideas in a respectful way. They're being able to ask for help, even
Right.
admit mistakes openly, right, without fear. I think this speaks more of how safe the environment has
Mm.
become rather than just taking numbers into it. And these are real indicators of the trust that we have developed as part of the team. So, of course, there are traditional metrics. So, we can talk about employee engagement, we can talk about attrition, mobility, the participation in learning programs that we run, the feedback, the employee surveys. I mean, those are metrics. And of course,
Mm.
they need to exist and we do need to run them. But what we really need to pay attention is the quality of the conversations with the employees and the trust that we are having um, as part of the culture? Do we have people openly talking about the problems, the concerns? Are they bringing new ideas into the team?
Right.
And just watching over the behaviors. And I think that speaks more of psychological um, safety rather than just pure numbers behind it.
Got it. No, I think that's a great way of thinking because it really talks about how you are investing in your people, making it an environment where people can be themselves and open up and share ideas and be more creative rather than be restricted. So great thoughts again. Thank you so much for that. Now, for a GBS leader who inherits a center that's very transactional in nature, so what, according to you, is the first? How do you think the first 6 months would look like if the goal is to transition that or modify that into a capability hub?
Okay, I think first thing is avoid the temptation of start growing
Mhm.
randomly, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, we first need to understand exactly where we are standing at, and from there, what leadership we need to develop, what's the governance model, what's the expertise that we have in the organization, what's the kind of culture that it's enabling the transformation. All of that needs to be very well understood before moving into any of those directions. So I really think the first 6 months need to be more about creating the conditions to have a sustainable growth. First, have a clear baseline, right? So understand what services we have, what's the level of maturity, if we have metrics, if we have customer satisfaction measured in any way. Um, so that needs to define the starting point. Then uh, then I'd focus on stakeholders across the organization. So you really need to understand who is participating in this, who's making the decisions, who's who has the right the influence over the model, who is owning the process today, and what kind of expertise they're going to be providing to this transformation. And this will allow us to shape what the future opportunities are going to be.
Right.
So building into those relationships early, it's what's allowing us to build a safe and trusty environment to enable the path moving forward. And lastly, I think it's important to identify quick wins.
Mhm.
These very small day-to-day improvements that we can start demonstrating that we are adding value, that we are improving, that we are learning, because that's helping us to build the credibility to start with, so that we
Right.
can start strengthening the processes over time, and that's going to create more confidence as we evolve the maturity of the center. So I think those would be like the starting points. Well, one more point I didn't mention,
Mhm.
if possible, not all of the organizations are able to do it, but if possible, and if it's mature enough, including a transformation office, it's a great value. If you're
Right.
able to have like change management completely enabled, introducing continuous improvement practices as part of the strategic conversations, this really shifts the mindset of the organization and takes it to a different level of maturity to enable the path moving forward.
Fantastic. No, I really love that. That's music to my ears because I'm in the change management space, and very often, GBSs don't really take this seriously. So when you talk about a change, a transformation office in a center and guiding the organization to a different maturity level, I think that really resonates with me. Now, according to you, where do you see the GBS leadership evolving in the next 3 years? So, according to you personally, where do you see that?
Oh wow. Well, personally, I'd love to continue contributing to the evolution of the GBS ecosystem in Colombia, and I'd really want to do it in Colombia. I mean, there's so many other locations like implementing these models, but I'm I mean, I'm an advocate of my country, and I really know that what we have to offer and the strengths that we can leverage to implement these kind of models here. So I think what excites me the most here is helping global organizations establish and grow the new GBS centers to be able to create long-term value. And it's not only for the business, but also for the talent that we have here and for the country. So there's just so many people impacted by the implementation of one of these models. So over the next few years, if you ask me, I'd really want to continue leveraging my experience, building high performing operations, having the opportunity to develop people-centered cultures, help organizations evolve from a
Mm,
transactional focus that they normally have as shared services into more strategic capability hubs. But that only happens in time. And I think that's kind of the evolution that we should be looking forward to have. And I'm also passionate about developing people, developing future leaders.
mhm.
I think that's part of what makes this journey most rewarding.
Right.
It's how you see people grow, get a career path, take on larger responsibilities, be part of international organizations, and just we just have so many great talent out there, and being able to grow from there and expand these capabilities, it's something that really like gets into me. So yeah, I
Interesting.
think that should be my journey.
No, I think that's a very strategic vision. I really love that because it's also shows your leadership dynamic because you're talking about growing others. When you grow others, you also grow. And I think that's a great approach you're taking. As we wrap up, the last question which I had for you is what advice do you have for GBS site leaders, when it comes to change management, branding, communication, how should they be thinking about it?
Well, that's very important, Anisu. I mean, the role of the site leader it should not be just about running operations any longer. It should really embrace and shape the culture of the organization, because today we're responsible for helping the people understand where we're going, why it's relevant, how they're contributing to the journey. They need to be part of it, right? So, my advice here is that we need to bring together all those three factors that you mentioned, like change management, employer, branding,
Right.
and communication. All those
Mhm.
three, they should be seen as part of the same leadership responsibility. It's not like individual initiatives or functions. It's all part of it. And what I've learned throughout these years is that successful transformations uh, are are not just about setting up a plan, like a project plan, but it's
Right.
where you have the people just really trusting the vision, feeling part and feeling included as part of the journey, and understanding how they are impacting and how they are creating value with their functions towards a greater vision. So when you mention these 3 points, I think those three are so relevant, and it's actually a best practice if the organizations are able to manage them properly. Communication is not just about sharing updates, right?
Right.
It's about creating alignment, clarity, bringing confidence into the people. Uh, when you talk about employer branding, it's not just a recruitment strategy, but it's also about reflecting the kind of culture and what we want the people to experience by working in the
Right.
company, right? And if you talk about change management, um, this perhaps what I can say about change management is that it needs to be embedded in the way that all the leaders listen, engage, embrace communication. I mean, every single leader must embrace change management as part of their culture so that we can support the organizations in the day-to-day decisions. I think that's the way that you need to bring together those three aspects, which are key, of course, to supporting the sustainable growth of the organization.
Now, that's fantastic. I think that's something which I would love for every site leader to listen to, because this is such a amazing articulation of how you have mentioned how these three fit into the overall aspect. And you talked about culture, you talked about alignment. These are really great insights which everyone can definitely use. So again, thank you, Paula. It's brilliant, been brilliant talking to you. Excellent insights. I'm sure our viewers will love every single piece of advice and guidance that you've given. So thank you again for taking the time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Anisu. Thank you very much and have a wonderful week.